And there we go, going along very, very nicely. As you can see down here, we have got it done. A little bit cloudy still, a couple of the screens, that's just the PVA glue drying, but hopefully, as you can see, that's made a world of difference down in there. Again, a little bit of dry brushing with an actual cocktail stick. So instead of just using a brush, we use a cocktail to give a more warm edge around this top, around these little lights up here. So literally just scratch at it and it goes on there. Same with the APU and the engine fire warning lights on there. Those are done and everything else. And again, you can see how this livens up this entire area. Talk about a difference. Absolutely beautiful down in there. No problem with that at all. And obviously it's very, very three-dimensional. So you catch it on the sides and all those areas like that. You can see you have no problem with it. So that way it gives a very nice finish right the way over. And also we finished down here in the cockpit, so some of the areas we've done a little bit of the actual hosing for the environmentals we've done down in there. We've installed the throttle. To be honest, I've still got to put on the little colour buttons on the side, but it's still a little bit wet down there, and we've finished off in there. So really that will complete the cockpit, which will then hopefully just sit on here like this. It'll go on and give us something very, very nice to look at in the cockpit, because obviously we're going to have it open and everything else like that. So looking on very, very well. So next up is going to be the actual the wing sections and things like that. So to be honest, we've already done the tail planes. This is very, very straightforward of doing all of this one. It was just a case of coming along, sandwich these two together and then placing one in, and then they laminate, because these are actually working parts. When we say they're working parts, they're strong enough to hold their own position, and obviously we've got the trim tabs to go on the back. You can see we've still got glue marks running along the leading edge. It's got quite chunky ones down here and things like that. So that needs to be cleaned up, but that all can be drying. We've got both the fuselage halves, as you can see here, together. They are in and put in, so they're all glued. Gives you a good idea of how big this lump is going to be when it's all together. As you can see, it's going to be no slouch. We can only just about get this in the camera angle. Okay, so that's all done and is drying as well. We've also done, let's do this side, the actual tails. These again, very, very simple. It's just two parts together. You can stick those together and then you put the actual rudders on. And again, I had to make a little bit of a change up here. So we just sanded this very, very lightly around this top area, just around here, just to make it swing through a little bit more easy. But the great thing about this kit is it's all moving parts. Okay, so these all are actually working parts. So next up we've got is the wing sections. Okay, so the wings themselves are pretty straightforward, but what you want to do is give them a little bit of a rub round just to get rid of any flash. Good example, we have got a bit just here. Say I'm all out of position here, so I'm on the other side. Okay, but you see this little raised edge just here? That's a classic example. You see it? That will interfere incredibly with the actual fit of getting this thing together. Okay, so again, you just want to make sure you're clear. To be honest, I've already been around this once. And again, this edge here is particularly nasty. It's got a little bit of an overhang and everything else like that running right the way around. So you want to make sure it's all smoothed in and it's all nice and everything else like that. Otherwise, what you're going to have is a situation where it's just a mess, and trying to squash these two in like this is a little bit of a problem, okay? So, as I said, this has also got working flaps. So you do two halves of the flaps just go together, all right? So those literally just push in like that. I wouldn't worry about this edge at the front. You don't see it because it doesn't come out that far, but it's said down the back you might want to take care of it, make it a little bit nice. Okay, and then we've already put this former in here. This former is, sorry, we're all a little bit all over the place, we're doing it on both sides. Okay, so this former down here, get it the right way around. Is number, right, we were right the first time, okay. This one down here is part number, where is it, down here? Oh. Which way round is that bloody way? It's that way. Okay, so this one down here has got already put in and glued in S4. That just fits in there already. Okay, then you take this guy out. Cutters. Okay, we just need to remove these two. Okay, now this is the mechanism which actually activates the flaps, because it's got the little grooves on that the flaps are going to run into. Now, again, a little bit gimmicky. It's up to you if you want to use them or not. Just make sure these are clean. Make a nice clean area down. Okay, so then what happens is basically these come along here, and if we got the right one to the right one, that's the one we want. Okay, this can only go in one way. because as you notice down on here we've got a little groove. Okay, so this guy is going to come in here and it's going to keyed in just down on that edge. Okay, so it's going to sit in there and push in, and what happens is you notice the little tab here and it's got another little tab here. This is actually what the actual flaps run on, so you just need to slide this guy in and then just poke that one in, lock it in, and it moves on this slide system. So you've got the barrier here and here are going to stop it going too far. The thing you have to watch though is obviously you don't glue it. Alright, so we just grab the glue. Okay, so we're starting at the front end and we just do these rear tabs just for the moment. Okay, and then you just want to be a bit mindful of how much glue you're using here, because you don't want tons of it flowing in, because otherwise you're going to ruin and it's going to stick on the actual area. But you see they're quite loose, they're quite floppy the way they go in. Okay, so we just push that one in, give that a sec, just a bite. Okay, and as that's going off up here, we can do the actual end part, which we've got here. Okay, now this is the detail for the inside of the actual ailerons, which also double up as the speed brakes on this. And again, it's slightly keyed. You've got a little tab down there, goes in the little hole just here. Okay, and there's that other side drying. So what you can actually do is put that in and it literally just sits there. So you can probably see a little bit of scraping work where we've been in there, take care of a couple of troublesome little ejector pins, and make sure that that's put in flat. And the other thing as well, it's going to strengthen up the end of the wing. And as I said, it's quite a nice kit this, because you do get lots of moving parts. So on this one particularly we get moving speed brakes as well as flaps and everything else. Okay, so that's in there just like that. Then we grab this guy here, which is S2. Okay, so again it's going to be this thing, we're going to put it in, okay, because we need to slot this guy in here. So it's just going to fit in under that one, and then again it's a little bit of a haphazard. Let's just, that fits under that one. Okay, and then this guy is just going to fit into there. Okay, so again this has got a track to slide on. Every now and again just make sure that that is loose and you don't glue it in a position, because it'd be nothing worse you have one in, one out. Okay, and as that's going off we'll just start at the top, glue that all the way through. And again, just a little drop just down the end there to hold that. And then obviously you've got the curve down. We're just going to hold that just a second, just to let it all go off and to bite into that. Otherwise it's going to end up with big gaps down the back. And as you can see, that's going off now. So what we do is just going to come in with a little bit more glue just on the outside. Again, a bit of a nudge, just to make sure that this one is in and it's lined up. A bit more time. Okay, so normally you'd let these sit a little bit longer, but obviously I'm eager to push on here. So again, it's a little bit, but you can see it does both work. Okay, so then it's just a case of putting the top half in. And again, this is where you want to make sure you've been in and had a test fit, because to be honest, I've already done the other one, I'll show you in a moment, and it was awful. Okay, so this all sort of goes in, and as you can see, you're going to need a little bit of work down this end, but this bit here, if you don't take care of it, it's awful. It really is nasty. So then it's a case of in with the pegs just to hold it all roughly into position. Okay, so just get a bit of a bite. Actually, it's not a bad fit if we are honest. Okay, and then we'll just pop one down across here. Okay, so what we'll do, we'll start up at this wingtip end, plenty of glue. If you've got the weld action, it will help no end up here, because it needs plenty of glue. And I think what we'd end up doing is coming in and smoothing some of this out. Luckily we've got nothing moving up here too much, so you can just pop in now with the glue. But you notice we've got a little gap just down the end there. Things like that you just want to be mindful of. Okay, try and squeeze that in a little bit, and then the lower half of the speed brake aileron system, make sure that's all glued in as well. That'll just help things be more structurally sound and everything else like that. Okay, so you do that. Let's see, this time to grab a few more pegs, And so I don't think I had enough pegs last time. Okay, so again, you can probably see here we've got this bouncing around in the wind a little bit, this guy just here. So we just want to take that. So again, only a little bit of glue. We don't want to go over the top because we don't want to glue the flap in one position. Okay, so we just do that. We'll hold that again. It's sliding, which is good. So what we'll do is we'll pop a clamp just to hold that in, and then we've got the same on this guy. Again, not tons of glue. We can obviously come in afterwards if required, and then needs a little bit of a pull in, a little bit of a curve to actually get this guy to fit. So we just hold that a second. Okay, now I'm not saying this is the best wing in the world, because personally I would have designed this slightly different. I don't like the idea of this moving flat business. I don't think you need it in modelling, but there's also a bit of a gap going underneath this wing, as you'll see in a moment, which I've had on both sides. And I need really to have a look at some references just to see what exactly is going on. Let's grab a few more of these just to hold all that in position. And what that is down at this end where we've got this going on. So we've got a plate coming in here which stops it going down the other way. But what this does is cause a huge big gap just down in here, and that slides across, which is okay when the flaps are deployed. And this does pull up a bit, but you might notice we've got quite a large something going on down here, and I don't know what that is, but I don't like it. But the thing is, it is supposed to be like that, because in a moment I'll show you on the other one. So what we'll do is I'm just going to glue up this. So just get the glue on the go. Okay. And then what we've got to do is go around all the fronts and making sure it's pushed in, and I do the upside down trick. So you just hold it upside down, plenty of glue, and let it get absorbed and sucked up into the joint, and then you can just pull it together. Okay, and you can do the usual trick, use a pair of scissors or something, and you can hold it and mould it into position. Okay, again, these I won't worry too much because you won't see them, because the we've got a little cover that goes over these little winglets. Okay, which is just going to go over those, so we'll just give that a bit of a squeeze, and then we can pop round in here, and we've got the inside of the wheel well. So plenty of glue going down in there. Again, it's all just got little gaps all over it, and that's because there's various things going on. Okay, we're just going to pop glue down this front leading edge. Again, if you look, it's not too bad. None of it's really bad. Okay, this little guy just down there, and then and once this is in and done, what we can do is come back and re-glue and retake care of all of this under here. Okay, but when you look at the leading edge, actually it's a really good one on this. It goes together once you've taken care of it. I'm just going to give it a pinch and then just run a bit more glue. It's just this edge here, just so we're not massively, and that is it. Now if I show you on the dry one, which is on this side, you should end up with something a little like this, but this is that gap. So we've got this gap down in here, which is really very, very odd. The way that this pulls down, we know it does go, but I don't know, it doesn't look to be fitting as I would want. We know this does pull up a little bit, but it doesn't pull up anywhere near as much as it needs under here for the flap system. But you know, it's got this bar in here, it's telling us it goes like it, and to be honest, when we made it up to the fuselage, gives you an idea how big this lump is. You can see that by the time this does pull up, we've got a little bit of work to do back here, but it is correct, it is fine. So it's a little bit odd how it goes, but yeah, it gives you an idea of how big this lump is going to be. So that is done. Okay, but again, I'm waiting for this to totally dry. We'll put the actual the extension on this one, and then the wing will be fitted on there, but this beautiful edge you can see is really, really nice. Okay, it's had a second coat of glue right the way around here and everything. You can see you're going to need a little bit of filler work just down in this one, just to smooth all this out, make it nice and pretty and everything else. But generally it's quite nice. It's got working flaps, but I don't know, I think they're a little bit gimmicky. Obviously we've got the up position, or we can have them down in the deployed position, but yeah, I don't know. So yeah, that's really it. So we're coming along very, very nicely. As soon as this is all cleaned up around here, if you're doing the camo one, I'd probably do them off, but if you're doing them on, these do fit on here actually very, very nicely. If I've got the right ones, it's this side. Okay, so these will then come in the back. Again, we're going to need a little bit of work, a little bit of playing just to make these on there, but I want to clean up all the parts first. But generally, as you can see, we have got all the big bits all done. These are all ready to go on there now. So now the cockpit's finished, we can actually think about getting it all inside, get it buttoned up, we can get the wings put onto it, and as I said, we'll come together really, really quickly. Okay, so now we're to that bit where it's sort of make or break. It will go, that's no doubt about it, but it depends how much fiddling around you've got to do to it. Now the A10, to be honest, is particularly difficult because we've got multiple things going down in here and we've got to bring it all together. It's not as easy as just putting in a cockpit and two halves. We've got the gun, which we've actually installed into here, and we've got the barrel. We've got the mechanism for it, which, to be honest, trying to line them up all in one is a bit of a nightmare, so I've cut it, okay, so I can get it in. We've got to get the cockpit in, so we need to shoehorn that in as well. We've got to get the ammo feed trays all put in there as well. That's, again, a bit fiddly to do it. On top of all of that, we've got this base unit here, which actually, technically, it looks like this is the hole for it, but this is the side. Actually, that's the well. So this has got to come underneath here, and it all fit in. So you've got to just make sure everything's going to fit. Also, you don't want it to have too much slack or, you know, too much room in there, otherwise things aren't going to lock into place and everything else. So don't go in there sort of over sanding it and all the rest of it, otherwise you could be in for a little bit of trouble. So what we're doing at the moment, we're just taking our time, sanding off a little bit. So the biggest thing we've had to do is make some small adjustments. You can see down here at the back of the actual well. This is to enable this to sort of fit in up here. So what we're doing just for the moment, we'll put these two halves in, and we're just making sure that once we get this thing together, that the cockpit can actually come up into position, which is there, and everything still lines up and will close up, and obviously the gun and the various bits and pieces. And you can see in there we've got the cockpit installed there. We've obviously still got to put in the instrument display, but that does fit, and that does go in there, which is, say, taking a little bit of modification on the back. Then we've got to make sure that this clears that in there as well. So what we're doing is we're just inserting that in there, and we're just making sure that this will all fit in. Okay, and it seems to be, we've got plenty of room at the back there. We've got nothing jarring. There's no reason why that won't fit in the back. You can see that's the well we're going to have down there. And I think once we play with this just a little bit to get it all down in here like that, we should be fine. The gun's in there, the gun clears, everything else works really, really well. So I'm quite happy of how we've actually got this in. So I think it's all going to go. It's just a question of now of putting it all in there, okay, and making sure it all fits and everything else. What I'm going to do, to be honest, because the cockpit needs to push up on the inside, I'm probably just going to have it in here. And then what I'll do is I will then glue it from the underside. We'll use some tools, we'll get in there and push it up. But also at the same time, what you want to do is make sure that the rest of the model goes together okay. Because obviously if you start gluing things in there and sort of getting things all locked in and all the good stuff, you want to make sure that all of these are coming together. So we've got a little bit of an issue just down the back here. You might see it, I hope you can see it. Got a little bit of flash, so we need to take care of that. Okay, the rest of it seems to be pretty good. We've got a little bit of a join at the back here, which is either we were going to have a big join here or one there. That's not a problem. That's going to be an easy one to take care of. Okay, so we can fill that guy up and everything else. So our main problem is this one just down in here. Okay, and what that is this little bit is overhanging just down in here. So again, we're just going to come along, sand it in. Same with these guys, just making sure the pins are all good, and we're just going to double check here. It's just got little bits of overlap, and again a little bit of flash. Okay, and it is these things that just, you've got a lot going on in one fell swoop. Okay, so what you want to do is just take your time Make sure everything's good so you've got no surprises, because the worst thing that can happen is you can suddenly get a beautiful scene at the front here and it's gone together beautifully and we're all good and happy and we're moving in, then you suddenly look elsewhere and then we've got a bit of a problem. So we are going to have to do a little bit of filler work down in here, but as I say, it's a small price to pay because this is all good around the edges. Okay, so that looks like it's nice, maybe a little bit down there. Okay, checking the riveting. The less work we can do around this raised rivet, the better. And as we know, the back end of an A10 is all raised rivets, so it's going to be less time we're going to need to repair those. But generally, I think we're okay. Just checking the front, round the gun, round the nose, and I think we're all good to go. So now we can start getting it all in there. So first of all, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get the cockpit. We're going to put the instrument panel and we're just going to glue it slightly into place. Now the reason for gluing this now is because it needs to be a good fit. So we're going to pick a side, and to be honest, we're going to come in here. We've got our beautiful instrument panel and we're going to line this up and we're just going to glue this guy in. Okay, so we're just going to hold a second or two, because this is one of the areas where you can't cheat it. It needs to be perfect. If it's not perfect on here, what's going to happen is that obviously you're going to have that situation where there's a big gap, you need to sand and fill, it's a bit of a nightmare. So we're looking for a nicer join on here. Okay, and then hopefully that's going to, perhaps it's not. As I say, I need to upgrade my super glue because this stuff's pretty rubbish. Okay, so we're just going to get this installed onto here. Alright, so hopefully, come on, this glue's taking forever to go off for some reason. So what we want to do is, stick into my finger, put that in one side, and then we want to come in before that totally goes off, like there. See what we do, we'll just take this off. Again, this is that thing where it's just all fiddly and you're trying to do lots of things all at the same time, okay? Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Okay, so we're just going to pop that in. We know that's okay, that's okay. So again, what we'll do, we're just going to come up and we're just going to glue this instrument panel into place. So it's in there. You can see here, classic example. You see what we've got now? This windscreen, this instrument panel is wider than the cockpit. So this is something we haven't thought about, but we're going to have to try and play shoehorn now, because, and this is what we're saying about old school resin versus new school resin. So what we're going to do is we're just going to have to rejig this. Okay, so what we're going to do is going to grab some tape. You could use clamps, but tape's easier. Let's tape this up, work the situation, work the problem, and work out why the instrument panel doesn't fit. Okay, so we're just going to grab these two like this. I'll put a little bit of tape here. Okay, a little bit of tape just here, just to hold it together. And then again, we're going to put a little bit just around the front here. Okay, and let's work out why this is nowhere near this. Okay, so when we put this in, as we can see, it's about 1 mil too short, which often makes me wonder who was inventing and writing out, and I must admit I do get on a little bit of a rant here, but what person was actually measuring this up? They've obviously just taken the correct dimensions from the real aircraft, which makes it a little bit harder to work this out. So what we're going to have to do is widen this slightly. So we're just going to come in here and we're going to sand each side of these to actually get the cockpit to fit. So we're just going to sand these outwards. And again, just working it bit at a time until we've got the right amount of room. So bear with me, I'm just going to sand this until we've got the correct spread, so we can take a little bit of depth out of these. Okay, not taking too much because obviously we don't want to run out of windscreen. Okay. So we can just pinch a bit from each side just for the minute. And then we can work out what is exactly going on and why. She's getting quite close there now. And this is the thing with old school resin versus new school resin. Old school was very much a case of they took perhaps the correct measurements from the aircraft and tried to shoehorn it into a model kit, which has got incorrect sizes, versus this type of thing, where it could be just the manufacturer misaligned. See, that side's up and is fine. This side needs to come. Okay, so as you can see, that's almost there. We've just got to come up a tiny bit on the other side, but hopefully you can see this is what we're doing, just making that spread, and we're just trying to get it to come up and to sit flush with the outside here. That one's fine, it's this side. But again, these are all little things where you want to find these before you get into the heavy duty stuff, because as soon as you're in there and you've got glue running around and stuff like that, that's the bit where, you know, sometimes it can make the difference between perfection and a really sloppy fit, because then you start having to take cuts out of your actual parts and everything else like that, and that's almost there. That's very, very close. Just another little trim, maybe in from a different angle. Okay, we are almost there. I'm thinking with a little bit of a nudge. The big problem we've got, obviously, you can see it in here now, is that we don't want to just take a little smidgen just off of this edge, and we'll repaint afterwards. So I'm just going to take a little toe out of there. But to be honest, that's actually looking really good now. This is pretty much what you get when you're trying to shoehorn various things into model kits. And there we go, we're in there now. Got a little bit of playroom as well, but there we go, that's our instrument panel fitted in there. Okay, so we now know that that will, with a little bit of playing, just like that, will give us the exact spread and all the bits and pieces we actually want. Okay, so it's just going to be I think a case of we'll reshape the actual instrument panel just to fit in there. Okay, but we now know it fits, which is the main problem. But as I said, these are all things you'd rather do now than otherwise. Okay, so in theory there is a couple of little shortcuts you could do. If you wanted to, you could now glue this as is and button it up and all the rest of it, okay, and you'd be good to go, no problem at all. Then you could just sort of drop in and shoehorn various parts in here. I don't know if we get this in, but it is personal choice on how you actually want to put all these bits in there. See, the gun just needs a little bit of straightening work and everything else, but we're getting there. So what we're going to do, we're literally just going to bite the bullet now Just keep these bits of tape handy, and then we're going to start to work our parts in. Okay, so for the gun deck and everything, I'm going to try and fit that afterwards. So starting off with, we've got the area, so I'm going to pinch a bit of white tack just for the minute. We're going to sit that just in here. Okay, now the reason for this is so it gives support to this guy whilst we fit him in and get it installed and in. Okay, so that's just going to sit in there like that. And as I say, that's just to weight it. And what we'll do is we can then get everything in there and we can then start pushing it all around, manipulating it to go in. So we need the instrument panel, it needs to go in here as well. Okay, because that will be very difficult to try and fit afterwards. Okay, so that is in there. So what we're going to do is just going to put a drop of glue just down the back. That's just to start it running around and do all its bits. Okay, and everything else like that. Okay, I'm probably going to do that afterwards. That's handy. So what we're going to do is just come in. Panel we should be able to get in afterwards, so we're going to retake this. Retake that. Retake that. Okay, so we've got that in. So now what we're doing is just going to push it up into location. So what we need to do now is check the spread, because obviously we've got the cockpit to go on, and the last thing we want is the canopy to sort of fall through. So we've got the rear deck as well, which we can check just to see how this is all going to fit in. So we can get these in. So again, this is showing it as being very, very tight. So again, we're looking at the parts and we're just trying to work out reasons why, how, and everything. Okay, and it does seem to have a little bit of an alignment issue here. So I'm just wondering if this should be spread a little bit wider. Everything seems to be perfect in alignment and it's nothing's crushed in, so why this doesn't just drop in and become a drop-in fit is a little beyond me. So what I think we'll do is we're just going to grab the canopy and make sure the canopy fits. See, and there we go. The canopy is a perfect fit onto this, so we have no problem with that being too wide. So it looks like this resin could be a little bit too wide, which is really odd. Okay, so that'll sit in there literally just like that. Okay, canopy fits like that. Okay, so we're checking the width of the canopy to the width of the... and that is pretty much spot on. Okay, we're happy with that. Okay. So we are sort of working our way into this. Not easy, I might add. Okay, so okay, that can go in afterwards. So we're happy how that instrument panel is. This guy could do with just easing a little bit like that. Okay, so what I'm going to do is we're just going to take a wrist now. We're going to put a good blob of glue. And then hopefully the capillary action is going to carry that round. We're also going to put a good blob just down there at the back and a good blob on that side. And we're basically saying, okay, let's get this thing together now. Okay. So that's in there. I wouldn't hit it with kicker because kicker is going to fog and is going to cause all ends of problems, but that technically means we are physically on now. We are gluing this into position. That is solid and is in there. Okay. Okay, so right. So what we're going to do, we're just going to let that glue dry just for a moment, okay, get it together. What I'm going to do is just go around, do a few more checks and things like that, and then what I'm going to start doing is gluing down the back end and coming right the way forward. Once that's totally solidly glued in, what we're going to do is then obviously we'll get the instrument panel put in there, sort that out, get that one done and in there, get the rear deck glued in, and then we can put this side up and in there. But just for the minute, I want to let that glue that's going floating around in there and making a mess and all the rest of it just go off. So probably what I'm going to do is I'm going to let it come south, stick it over here just to start to dry off and go, and then that way we can really start bringing it together.